Well, I want to say thank you for taking the time to meet with me on Teams video. And I want to also just recognize and congratulate you on the May Associate Spotlight. I've been able to have the honor of working with you for September. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
first week in
it's been such a
September.
joy. I just think you're such an asset in addition to the company, especially in Northwest Arkansas. So I'm a bit partial, but I'm very happy
As we all
to
are.
do. To speak about your name, can you just and yourself, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do for our company?
Well, my name is Allison Cavazos. I am a system operations specialist. Basically, what I do is I am kind of not trying to overcomplicate things, but I'm a liaison between our clients and our NOC engineers, and then also through our primary engineers. What we try and do, there's only like a handful of us currently at Adafio, and what we try and
Mhm.
do is when there is a need from the NOC, like an escalation point, we are that escalation point. So we will find either we will try and as best as possible resolve it, or we will attempt to find the appropriate resource and assign that issue or discuss the issue with the primary engineer. And so we've got our hands in everything pretty much. We have to know the internal, who's better at what, who to go to for, certain solutions and resolved issues. So
Like the liaison, or as they used to
hmm
call him, the ombudsman, the
yep,
go-between
yep.
to kind of help the everything work a little bit smoother.
hmm
So yeah,
hmm
that's very important. I think that's especially important as we continue to grow.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and we're also more in the group of, the spearheading of looking at different solutions internally and what will fit best not only for our clients but also for Adafio. So we're starting to get more into the space of looking at, our tech stack and looking at what we currently have and where we can move forward. So we're also kind of got our hands in that as well.
So what do you like most about doing your job? What are some of the things that you enjoy?
I mean, I tend to take a very creative approach to my job. I know that, in IT in general, IT is a part of the business organization, part of the business unit, because everything in IT is at some point in time comes down to a cost benefit. And then you've also got the logical thinking about is something that we're doing financially viable. So there's that logical portion of it, but I really like the keep you on your toes kind of challenging aspect to IT, where you do have to use a lot of creative thinking and understanding, where are we at? What are our options? How do we move forward with this with the available resources? And so there's always like little things that come up, and it may be something that you kind of know something about. If it's something like that, but there's not really a great answer to it. I like that type of, okay, well, what can we do moving forward? And then using that as an example to move on in case that situation does come up again.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine it's always changing, but and especially when we have such a diverse client group,
Mm-hmm.
and then we also have such a massive umbrella of expert and certified engineers from all over that you've got
Mm-hmm.
resources in all directions. So how somebody does it may be different than the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have in some form. Everyone kind of has their baseline of
Okay.
standards about how they kind of do something. But then that's just the base. So it can grow from there in all different directions. It's always interesting to talk to other engineers and other people at Adafio, even different clients who have different needs. What may work for one person as an employee is completely different than what may work as well for them internally. But for our clients as well, everyone's kind of different, but there is that kind of baseline that we all can kind of shoot off from.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
I have quite a few lawyers in my family, and I have
Yeah.
older cousins. I was one of the youngest like kids in my family. So My older cousins, a few of them are lawyers, and so when I was growing up, I really wanted to be a lawyer. I like admired them. I used to say to my parents like, "Oh, this looks like really interesting and fun," and I like to argue, so why not? Yes. And they were like, yeah, makes sense. I was very opinionated, for sure. I'm sure they love that. I like the aspect of research. So
Yeah,
I think I would be a lawyer doing, I don't even know. I think that being a lawyer is just such a broad area
it
that,
is.
I mean, there's so many cool things that you could do as long as you have, the ability to practice. But there's some interesting areas that I think that I would have pursued. Or my dad really wanted me to become a FBI investigator. He was like really pushing for me to do that. And looking back on it now, I think that would have been a really interesting
Yeah, I could see
branch
that.
to take. The research aspect, the idea of investigation and law
Digging
and
in,
digging in and
learning,
all of that stuff.
fixing, yeah,
Fixing,
coming
yeah.
to
So,
conclusions, finding an end result to something, but could come from many different angles.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it's a,
that those types of jobs have always interested me.
well, I feel like you're kind of doing that, but just in
In a form,
in a
yeah.
non-human way. You're not dealing
Hmm.
with, I mean, you are doing, okay, you are dealing with humans, of course. Everybody's
Yeah,
not.
it's
But
all
how,
human. Yeah. It's
but
all
how
human,
you're going
even
about it.
though, the things that we mainly touch or fix are all not. But human
Yeah.
interaction is a big part of it for sure.
Asking questions and coming to a solution. That's,
Yeah,
mm, and yeah,
yeah,
common
exactly.
denominator.
And so instead, I went into marketing, which was, I was like, well, what am I doing? But I think all in all, umbrella wise, like, okay, well, if I liked this before, and then I've come here, what's the connection? And I think it's
Sure.
all about. I eventually I just kind of came down to it where it's just like psychology,
Yeah.
the human brain and how we interpret things and experience things, and what and how that affects us in life. And I finally kind of put it together that it's all kind of intertwined. So it's not like I
Hmm.
ventured off too much, but
No, you
you know,
didn't.
I also have like a PR minor, and that one was really interesting as well. But even then, too, what's interesting is that, I went to college like right as social media was just about to like take off.
Hmm.
So I remember
There.
being in
Oh,
college, and I was like one of the first kind of college kids who had a Facebook account because we could. That at the same time, while kind of learning about everything right before graduating that was happening, was like, I think it just changed the game. Like I was like,
it
I just
did.
graduated and there's all this new stuff coming up. So it was pretty interesting to go through. Right as I graduated, the recession had officially hit too. So
I was
it was
wondering if that
like,
was around that same time. Yeah.
yeah. It was a little bit of a personal journey of acceptance and and just trying to make my way through right after I was like, oh man, should I just go back in and shield myself from
Yeah.
what's going on? It's like, yeah, it's like being kicked out of a house and you're just not ready to take on life at that point. So it was interesting.
So true. You have a fun fact that I also have. Can you share a little bit more about your fun fact that many people don't know? Potentially
Oh,
don't know.
oh, I am left-handed. It is a thing. It comes up in conversation quite a bit. Well, interestingly enough, in our NWA office, we realized that four of us are officially left-handed, or five of us. There's quite a few.
I remember us going to lunch one day, and there's about 13 of us in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Peter was still there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at least four or five, like you said.
Yeah,
It
which
was,
is the largest, I think, percentage-wise of left-handed people I've been in a room with. So I was like, this is weird. Yeah, because usually it's like you have to make
you have to sit at the end.
accommodations for everyone around you at that point. I'm kind of more like on the teeter, like, yes, I officially write with my left hand, but I do everything like a right-handed person would. And then like
Oh,
I don't think about it, it just kind of happens. So I can write with my right hand fairly well. I don't do it often, but if I
is it
need to,
neat?
yeah. Hmm. in
You're
print
gonna have to
and in
show me.
cursive. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It comes in real handy if you have to write like on a whiteboard,
Yes.
because same thing, our wrists are like facing the board, so it's like, oh nope, gotta switch it.
You're
Like,
so
and
lucky.
chopsticks too,
Ooh,
forks.
no,
Like
yeah.
I change everything. I can change everything up if I need to. It's weird. I don't know. And sometimes it's like by feeling. Somebody's on my left side and somebody's right-handed, then I'll just like accommodate.
That has to make you a genius of some kind. I feel like your brain
I
works in a
hope.
way that is unlike most others because for me to just try to write with my right hand, it's hard. And the only thing I
Hmm.
would say that I could do with my right hand, and it was only because I learned, was using my mouse with my right hand
Right.
because it was
Yeah.
only that was kind of like I don't think we really had a whole lot of choices at that time. Everything
Hmm.
with the mouse was meant for a right-handed person. So I think about people that are graphic designers that are right-handed and they can write and do all the things with their hand. But for
Hmm.
me, I can't do the mouse with my left hand. It just doesn't feel right.
It is,
It's
yeah, that,
awkward.
well, I can't I can't do it either. Like if simple stuff like I can't really snap that well with my left hand, but I can with my right. So it's like, I don't know.
So I
It's
can
just,
do both. So I'm ambidextrous. I'm just kidding.
yeah. Yeah, it's like this one's kind of weak and then this one's kind of a lot louder. I don't know. It's just like the weirdest thing. I think it was just because school you had to like always accommodate because you didn't know if you were going to get the left-handed desk that day kind of situation. So
Yeah, so
just
true.
kind of,
Well, that's a very cool fun fact. I feel like I want to know through the company just how many left-handers there are. It should be a question
they're
we ask
all
at
up
some
here. So
point. They are. They're all in
they're
Northwest
all up
Arkansas
here.
because
Yeah.
we're in our right mind.
Yeah.
Kidding. Just
Exactly.
kidding, Little Rock.
I think I put on there too that I love hot sauce because I do love
That's
hot
right, you do.
sauce.
Is there a particular
Yeah.
flavor that you like more than, I mean, or is there a brand that you would suggest?
I think it depends upon what you're eating
Okay.
because I am very much like a condiment queen. Like I love condiments, but it depends upon what it is you're eating so that it exemplifies, that food experience, right? So
Hmm.
I tend to on the regular kind of daily like usage of hot sauce, like your vinegary based ones, like if I'm eating seafood, depends upon what it is, but the vinegary based ones, the smoky ones, the ones that have like a smoky kind of almost like tequila flavor in the background. There's this really good restaurant on the square. I don't know if you know it, but Zuma Kitchens.
Yes.
Yeah, they make their own hot sauce and they have
Oh.
one that's like really, really good. And so every time I go there and I'm out, like I'll buy a bottle from them, but it's like this
Oh, you can even
really
actually buy the
dark.
bottle from them.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Is
really,
it
really dark.
sweet?
No, it's smoky,
It's uh-huh.
kind of has like a tequila-y lime kind of mezcal flavor. I don't know if you've ever had
Yeah.
mezcal before, but it's really good. And then I don't know if you've ever seen the Hot Ones like interviews, the challenges that they do. Have you seen
I
that?
haven't.
Oh my gosh, you have to check it out. It's pretty cool. If you like interviews and like understanding how people talk and that sort of thing. So Hot Ones it's like a YouTube series. It's called First We Feast are the ones that produce it.
Uh-huh.
And it's this guy named Sean who interviews famous people, celebrities, athletes, that sort of thing. Whoever will come onto a show and actually accept the challenge. And he has like this group of 10 hot sauces ranging from, very low on the Scoville level to like you probably might not feel very good at the end of it.
Yes.
But in between, he's asking them all these very interesting questions, and you see people as they go up through, if they make it, as they go up through the levels of Scoville and hot sauces, how quickly their answers change because they're just like so vulnerable in that moment where they're like crying, and spitting, and it's funny,
That
but
is fascinating.
yeah, no, you should definitely watch it. It's pretty interesting. But I've done like three of those just on my own because I have like most of those hot sauces, and so
Do they last a while?
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
curious.
most of them you don't want to like leave in the fridge. I mean, they'll generally like be on their
Yeah.
own. They're fine because
Okay.
most of them are like vinegar based
Right.
or cooked. So
So what do you like to do for fun besides tease people with your if you're right or left-handed or have hot sauce?
I like being outside, as most Northwest Arkansas people do, when
Hmm.
we can, when the weather's good. Hanging out with friends, being in a patio somewhere, just the
Let's
usual,
do
just
that
being.
soon.
I know, right? I know. It's like now's the time before it gets like too hot. The mosquitoes coming out, and it's just not that great. Hiking and biking, whenever there's time, finding water. We have great water spots around here, so.
Don't we? Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
I
is
really
the
want to go
time.
camping. I know. It's not too hot. But yeah, watching movies, big movie fan, TV shows. I try and keep up, but there's so much out there. There's so much good content. Can be
It's
like a
true.
little hard to keep up, but
Well, speaking of shows, I asked you who, if anybody, you would like to meet, dead or alive, and who did you pick? Who would
Anthony
that be?
Bourdain,
Yeah.
yeah. Man, I have watched him since I was a kid when he initially got his first show, and I believe the first one was Food Network. I think it was a Cook's Tour was the initial show that he
Okay.
had on there. So I've watched him for years, and his love of food, and he's grumbly, grumbly man. He's definitely got his opinions about
Just a
things,
little
and
moody, just a little
yeah,
moody, a little argumentative,
little moody, little rock and roll. But I
little
just love,
unhinged, but yeah,
yeah, little
all very
unhinged.
compelling.
Yes, but like the way he tells stories though, and his love of meeting new people and new environments and bringing the food aspect into that. It's his writing is pretty brutal
But
sometimes, but it's immersive for sure.
it definitely picks at people in a way that it can be controversial, but that also could be very memorable. I just finished watching the most recent, and it just very compelling and what's the word? But not just complicated. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, he's definitely like a complicated character. I mean, it was a while ago. I finished Kitchen Confidential, and he talks about being a cook and being a chef at Leal, which is in New York
Yeah.
City, and how he talks about kind of that underbelly, seedy life of being a cook and having weird hours and all of these things. I find that very interesting, and I've had a lot of friends and have a lot of friends that have been in the restaurant industry
Mhm.
and the service industry. So a lot of that, like, oh yeah, I can see that how that can leak
Yes.
into personal everyday experiences for sure.
What's your motto or personal mantra? I'd love for you to get a little bit more into this one.
I don't really have like a motto. Do you remember like one of the kind of biggest books that I've read that really kind of sat with me where I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense than things that I've read, which was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that kind of Toltec understanding of, and I don't know if you've read it, but
I
um,
did. I
mhm,
read it. I teach yoga, and I sometimes
mhm,
will do a book club at a yoga festival, and that was one of the books that I chose. And I had us all read about it and then talk
mhm.
about each of the four agreements and our feelings behind them. And is it realistic? Is it something that you can practice? And I think, of course, everything is you can be aware of and stay mindful of to not take it personally. Don't make assumptions. What were the other two?
Do your best.
Do your
Oh, be
do your
impeccable.
best. Be
Be
impeccable with your
impeccable with your
word.
word. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that one, and I remember it was kind of during that time where I was like soul seeking, during the recession of, oh no, what do I do, kind of situation. So I remember reading that book and I was like, okay, this is helpful because things can be so chaotic around us, and I listen to, read a lot about politics and all the stuff that's going on in the world. And so it can be really hard to not absorb that. I'm somebody that tends to take
Be an
energy from a
empath.
lot of things.
Hmm.
Yeah, from a lot of things. So, okay, well, you can be mindful of something and be aware of something, but I sometimes have to check myself to make sure that I'm not absorbing all of that because it
Yeah.
will affect me mentally and
Yeah.
my thinking and it can weigh on you. So, I think a lot of what Don Miguel Ruiz said in that book was helpful in that
Yeah.
for sure.
I know that we're almost out of time, so I just wanted to end with one final question that I
Mhm.
always love to hear, and that's everybody at Adopio has a story of what brought them to this company, and if you wouldn't mind, just share yours with us.
Yes, I have a friend, well, Austin Bailey. We all know Austin. He had previously worked where I had worked. We both worked at the U of A. So we kind of knew each other through that. And then he went off to go work for athletics while I was still at the computer store. And who, Joseph was the IT director at that time, and Austin went to go work with him. And then I had at that time, after a little while, had moved into Fulbright IT, our little group that handled Fulbright College. Well, just mutual friends, and through also Joseph had stayed in contact with Austin, and Austin had been talking to us about Adafio and telling us, how he's liking it. And so we'd always kind of kept in touch. And then he kind of brought up the idea of, why don't you guys apply and see what happens? And I was kind of being like, okay, well, working at the U of A for quite a while, going out into the private sector can be a scary endeavor, because it's not necessarily different per se, because you're still technically, in business. And just that culture is organized to a point where that's the decision. Whereas, like, going into the private sector, have been told, especially when you go from the public sector to the private sector, there is always that kind of undertone of like, well, be careful out there. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, well, that's just life in general. See what happens and see how it goes. So
That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Allison, and have a great rest of your day. Happy May Associate Spotlight. And
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to see you again face to face. We'll do lunch soon.
Yes. Or patio season.
Patio. I'm already envisioning the next meetup.
Oh, yes.
Stay tuned.
All right. We'll do.
Bye.
Bye.